I'd like to welcome you to this Grok Talk with BizTalk Server 2004 Binding Files in U. I'm Jon Alexander, the .NET Practice Manager at VisionPace and a Microsoft Regional Director. So today, we're going to talk about binding files and why they're important in BizTalk deployment. So, come along, won't you? So our agenda today is what is a binding file and why it's important. Then we're going to walk through and dissect the binding file, and then we'll round it out with some handy tools for BTS deployment. So a binding file is an XML file containing assembly binding information. It's created by the BizTalk deployment wizard, and you can either import or export. When you import them, you're bringing the information from the configuration database from a file. So the binding file is created by the BizTalk server deployment wizard, and when we import them, we import the information into the BizTalk configuration database from a file. When we export them, obviously we'll export that information from the BizTalk configuration database to a file. We use them primarily for deployment configuration, and it's very important so that you don't have to change your port information every time you want to make a change to your settings. So let's take a romp through the binding file itself and see what this important file has to offer us. So here we have the binding file in all its glory. And as you can see, it's split into several different parts. It's split into parts that allow you to bind the assembly to the BizTalk services themselves, as you can see here. Then we also have the information for the ports themselves. So after we bind to the port itself from the service that we're working on, you notice now that we have our different port collections down. So I have my different ports here. We have our name, whether or not it's static, and whether or not it's one-way or two-way. So everything that the port needs is in this binding file. So for example, I have several different examples of ports here, the first of which is working with SMTP. So you can see that I put in all my transport type data, all the retry information, and whether or not it has ordered delivery. So there are several things in here that are specific to the service that we're working on with our port. As I go down through here, whether it's a file system or what have you, all this information is available to me. And if you notice here, with these send ports, I can segment these out. And the nice thing about that is, as I work through these, with the services then, I can bind those services at any point in time. And notice here that within the services, I have a ports collection. Within the ports collection are my specific ports, whether it's receive or send. Notice then that as each one of my ports are listed, along with the BizTalk host, I can take any number of those then, change the information, and redeploy. It makes the binding files very, very powerful. So why do I need to use these? What's the purpose? Well, many people over the years with BizTalk have had to manually go in and change their channels, ports, and other deployment information manually as they've moved from staging environments to production or made changes in development. The binding file, when you use it with either installer package, BTS installer from the BizTalk SDK, or a custom installer package, gives you the power to specifically specify the information that you need per port. So it makes it extremely powerful. What we want to see then is also the fact that we can change, if we're working with roles and parties within BizTalk, to segment out that information, we can specify that information in there as well. So within the binding info, we've seen that we have all of our port information, and we can specify that at any given point in time. All the different port capabilities that we have are available within this file. Let's take a look at an example of a general binding. There's not much here, but it allows us to see the different sections that are available within the file. The module ref collection allows me to work with the specific services within BizTalk. The module ref collection works directly with the send port collection itself. Those two bind together. The services bind to the ports themselves. I can go in and edit this information, or I can use custom tools like 𝘍𝙬𝙬𝘬𝘧𝘚 BizTalk Deployment Wizard for NAT, which I'll give you the URL at the end of the program, allows me to set up XML templates within my binding file as well. So I can create them from a wizard. Very important, very powerful. In addition to that, I have a distribution list collection. As you may or may not be aware, distribution lists are used to group send ports together to be able to distribute the information to many different file formats themselves, whether it be SharePoint, the file system itself, or anything that we need. We also have the receive port collection. This allows me to manually bind my assembly to any of the receive ports that are defined within BizTalk server. Last but not least, we have the party collection. The party collection allows me to segment my roles and parties within BizTalk itself. So as you can see, the binding file itself is very, very powerful. It allows me to go in and make changes to any of these ports that are set up within BizTalk server itself. The way that I would do that is I would go in to the BizTalk server deployment wizard, and when I pull that up, what I'm going to want to do is I'm going to specify an assembly. When I pull that up, what I'm going to do is specify the assembly within the BizTalk deployment wizard, and I'll first export that assembly binding to my file. That gives me the original binding file in order to work with creating my ports and so forth. So as we round this out, let's go ahead and talk about the tools that are available within BizTalk itself for deployment. So the tools for BizTalk deployment that we have available right now. Some easy ones to get started with. The BTS installer is within BizTalk 2004 in the SDK itself, in the software development kit, under the software development kit folder. There's also 𝘍𝙬𝙬𝘬𝘬𝘬𝑧𝘚 deployment framework for BizTalk 2004. And it's at traceofthought.net. What that is a way to utilize BizTalk within NAT, which 𝘍𝙬𝙬𝘬𝘬𝘬𝘬 talked about earlier in one of the other Grok talks. So I hope you've enjoyed this Grok talk today to talk a little bit about the binding files within BizTalk and how you can successfully use them for deployment. I'm Jon Alexander, and from the Microsoft Regional Director Program, thank you very much.